Play as time goes by.
What the fuck have you done lately?
Play exam. Play as time goes by.
What are you doing up?
Well,
I couldn't sleep.
good evening then.
What do I give? How do I live in this life of ours? All I know is that I take plenty from here under the stars. I won't revive, I won't relive. I accept what I've done and I forgive. What do I give? How do I live in this life of ours? All I know is that I take plenty from here under the stars. I won't revive, I won't relive. I accept what I've done and I forgive. What do I give? How do I live in this life of ours? All I know is that I take plenty from here under the stars. I won't revive, I won't relive. I accept what I've done and I forgive. Nebulous days lead me to ravenous haze. Nebulous days lead me to ravenous haze, which will block my gaze. Illusory ways make feelings that don't stay. In and out they face. Is it always that? My tangible wishes are just out of reach. Nebulous days lead me to ravenous haze, which will block my gaze. Illusory ways make feelings that don't stay. In and out they face. Is it always that? My intangible wishes are just out of reach.
やれやれ。退屈だと言って何も行動せず、刺激を求める割には挑戦しない。
Feelings that don't stay. Feelings that don't stay. Feelings that don't stay.
いいかい埼玉市。人生は当てのない旅だよ。新しい景色を見るためには自分で道を切り開くしかないんだ。
Is it always that? Is it always that? My tangible wishes are just out of reach. Are just out of reach. Is it always that? Is it always that? A lot of people have done so much for me, but
Nej,
I no longer believe in myself.
nej,
Will I make it
nej,
on my own?
nej,
Am I capable of great things alone?
nej.
Take my hand and hold it tight, be my guide. It's getting hard to see in this darkness on my own. Take my hand, hold on tight. Take my hand as we make our way slowly to the unknown. Take my hand, I think my vision's finally clearing up. So hold on tight,
Nej,
hold on tight.
Ja,
I can make it
nej,
on my own.
nej,
I am capable of great things alone.
nej.
Take my hand and hold it tight. Stay here at my side. But if you let go, I think I'll be just fine.
Vadå?
what? There's nothing wrong.
Joe. Tell me what's wrong. Joe. Tell me what's wrong. Joe. Tell me what's wrong. Joe. Tell me what's wrong. Joe. Tell me what's wrong. Joe. Tell me what's wrong. Kel. Tell me what's wrong.
Gives me the willies every time I think of it.
Well, everybody, friggin' welcome. Hope everybody's doing super duper dandy on this night of terror, this night of haunting and evil. It's been a while, guys. I'll admit that. But I appreciate you guys' patience with me. I've run into that phase in my cycle where I don't know, I lose a lot of motivation and I start getting super existential and all that good old dandy stuff. Sorry, let me lower that the ambience a little bit. Hey, I appreciate that. And I will be off tomorrow because I'm gonna actually go to my folks and have a day with them. Wound up not going to the beach due to, like I said, the whole phase in my cycle thing. But I think I'm approaching the butt end of it, which is good. I believe I'm starting to get back that determination that I so desperately need. I finished up a song today. That was pretty darn cool. Um, I got suggested to me by the Chimperer, my buddy Coleman, to we were just playing the games together, and he just out of the blue went like when worlds collide. um, I'll be your guide, and I was like, dude, wait a second, what is that from? And he reminded me that there is a song from SpongeBob called "When Worlds Collide." You guys know the one, the um, take my hand, I'll be your guide when worlds collide. Wicked, wicked, what do? So in the next break, I'm gonna be playing that for you guys here. It has yet to be released, so you guys will get a sneak peek. Heck yeah. Oh, nice, Lay. I'm looking forward to seeing you again. Fear not, we'll be seeing you. Yo, what's up, Omni? It's been a while. I'm super glad to see you in chat again. I know it was you after all, right? That like recommended the Baraska. We read through all of chapter 5 or part 5 rather. And I didn't realize that was part 5. That was Baraska 5, guys. What we read through was Baraska 5. There are 4 other parts before it. So if you've been following along with the whole Baraska tale, we'll be going back. We'll be doing a little rewind. We've seen the end, and now we will go through and check out where it all began. Dude, I know. Whoops. Freaking oops. For real though, that was majorly my bad. But I'm looking forward to. That's why the title down there is more Baraska. Because I'm super pumped, dude. I honestly got sad whenever we finished it up because I was like, man, what am I gonna be able to find for Saturday nights that's gonna be as good as Baraska? And lo and behold, the thing that I found that will be as good as Baraska is Baraska. So heck yeah, I'm looking forward to that. I hope you guys are too. Yeah, oddly enough, like the 5th part, is pretty succinct, like in of itself. It's easy to jump into and kind of holds its own as a standalone story, to be honest. I feel like what we're gonna read tonight is gonna be just kind of like more world building, you know? It's almost like going back and looking into that lore. It is a standalone, okay. Because I feel like the link that you had sent me was to Baraska 5, or Baraska 5, not to the first one. Oh, Baraska V? But V is the Roman numeral 5, right? I can call it Baraska 5, right? or is it best to call it Baraska V? Definitely. Yeah, if you guys have been following the Baraska that we've read so far, then you will definitely know that trigger warnings galore. There's there's a lot of really heavy subjects within it, from drug use to mental health to I don't even know if I'm allowed to say it up here. The word that rhymes with the fruit that is purple and small.
Yeah, human slavery. That's a better way to say it. Thank you, Omni. Sexual assault. Um, I was sorry. I was grasping at what the better word or phrasing was. Yeah, but it's perfect for a night of horrors. You know, a lot of times we jump into stories of almost fantastic horrors, right? Things that could never exist or ought never to exist. But when we dive into Baraska, we're seeing human horror, realistic horror, um, which is, yeah, terrifying and hard to approach. But I hope you guys will approach it with me nonetheless. It really is, honest to goodness, what all we've read so far was just so good. Oh, 10 out of 10. It's one of those stories where once I finished it, it took me a long while to process it, and then once I was done processing it, I immediately wanted to go back and read it again. um, but yeah, speaking of which, say goodbye to Burning Snoopy. And say hello to Baraska. Right on. Ooh. I don't know. How do we feel about this sliding? Absolutely, guys. Again, trigger warning. Big time trigger warning. If you are sensitive to the topics of mental health, drug abuse, sexual assault, or human slavery, please, come back on a different stream, or come back in an hour or two when we'll be reading through, more like creepypasta-esque things. Thank you, Keaton. Top-notch lighting. Top-notch. You guys see, I guess you can't see how red it is, but I'm drinking a kombucha that's, that's red, and I thought it was fitting, because, it's red like blood. I can be like a vampire. Bleh. I drink kombucha flavored blood. Do you think vampires drink kombucha? Question of the night. I'll leave you to ponder that one. Okay, well, without further ado, let's get back into Baraska. So this is where the story begins. And this is Baraska by C.K. Walker. It's a long story, but one you've never heard before. This story is about a place that dwells on the mountain, a place where bad things happen. And you may think you know about the bad things. You may decide you have it all figured out, but you don't. Because the truth is worse than monsters nor men. At first, I was upset when they told me we were moving to some little town out in the Ozarks. I remember staring at my dinner plate while I listened to my sister throw a temper tantrum unbefitting of a 14-year-old honors student. She cried, she pleaded, and then she cursed at my parents. She threw a bowl at my dad and told him it was all his fault. Mom told Whitney to calm down. She stormed off, slamming every door in the house on the way to her room. I secretly blamed my dad as well. I'd heard the whispers too. My dad had done something wrong, something bad, and the sheriff's department had reassigned him to some little out-of-the-way country to save face. My parents didn't want me to know that, but I did. I was 9, so it didn't take me too long to warm to the idea of a change. It was like an adventure. New house, new school, new friends. Whitney, of course, felt the opposite. Moving to a new school at her age is hard. Moving away from her new boyfriend, however, was even harder. While the rest of us packed up our things and said our goodbyes, Whitney sulked and cried and threatened to run away from home. But a month later, when we pulled up to our new house in Drisking, she was sitting right next to me, texting viciously on her phone. Thankfully, we moved over the summer, and I had months of free time to explore the town. When Dad started his new job at the sheriff's office, Mom drove us around the city, commenting on this and that. The city was much smaller than St. Louis, but also a lot nicer. There were no bad areas, and the entire town looked like something you'd see on a postcard. Drisking was built in a mountain valley, surrounded by healthy forests, with walking trails and crystal clear lakes. I was 9. It was summer, and this was heaven. We'd only been living in Drisking a week or so when our next-door neighbors came to introduce themselves. Mr. and Mrs. Landy, and their 10-year-old son, Kyle. While our parents talked and drank mimosas, I watched the Landys' lanky, red-headed son hung out in the doorway, shyly eyeing the PS2 in the living room. Do you play? I asked. He shrugged. Not really. Do you wanna? I just got Tekken 4. Kyle glanced at his mom, who had just been handed her third mimosa. Yeah, sure. And that afternoon, with the ease and simplicity of our age, Kyle and I became best friends. We spent the cool summer mornings outside exploring the Ozarks and the hot afternoons in my living room playing the PS2. He introduced me to the only other kid in the neighborhood our age, a skinny, quiet girl named Kimber DeStaro. She was shy, but friendly, and always up for anything. Kimber kept up with us so well that she quickly became the third wheel in our tricycle. With my dad at work all the time, my mom consumed with her new friendships, and my sister locked in her room all day. The summer was ours to take, and take it we did. Kyle and Kimber showed me where all the best hiking trails were, which lakes were the best and most accessible by bike, and where the best stores were in town. By the time the first day of school rolled around in September, I knew I was home. On the last Saturday before school started, Kyle and Kimber told me that they were going to take me somewhere special. Somewhere we hadn't been yet. The Triple Tree. What's a triple tree? I asked. It's this totally awesome, totally huge treehouse out in the woods, Kyle said excitedly. Whatever, Kyle. Come on, you guys. If there was a freaking treehouse, you would have showed it to me already. Nuh-uh. We wouldn't have. Kyle shook his head. There's a ceremony for first-timers and everything. Kimber nodded eagerly in agreement, her dark orange curls bouncing off her tiny shoulders. Yep, it's true, Sam. If you enter the treehouse without the proper ceremony, you'll disappear, and then you'll die. My face fell. Now I knew they were making fun of me. That's a lie. You guys are lying to me. No, we're not, Kimber insisted. Yeah, we'll show you. We just have to get a knife for the ceremony and we'll go. What? Why do you need a knife? Is it a blood ceremony? I whispered. No way, Kimber promised. You just say some words and carve your name into the triple tree. Yep. It takes like 1 minute, Kyle agreed. And it's a really cool treehouse? I asked. Oh yeah, Kyle promised. Okay, I guess I'll do it then. Kyle insisted on using the same knife he used during his own ceremony, but we paid a price to get it. Mrs. Landy just happened to be home with her youngest son Parker. Despite Kyle's many objections, his mother insisted he take his 6-year-old brother with him. Mom, we're going to the treehouse. It's only for older kids. Parker can't go. I don't care if you're going to see an Exorcist movie marathon. You're taking your brother with you. I need a break, Kyle. Can't you understand that? And I'm sure your friends won't mind. She flashed Kimber and me a challenging look. Right? No, not at all, Kimber said, and I nodded in agreement. Kyle made a loud, dramatic sigh and called his brother. Parker, put your shoes on. We're leaving now. I'd met the youngest Landy several times before, and found that he was as unlike his older brother in looks as in disposition, where Kyle was wild, excitable like a fireball, hair to match. I found Parker to be an anxious, fidgety boy with small eyes and dark brown hair. We got on our bikes and made our way to a lesser-known hiking trail a few miles away. I'd asked before where the trail led when we'd ridden across it several weeks before, and Kyle had given me the underwhelming answer of, nowhere interesting. We pulled up to trail ahead and leaned our bikes against the wooden signpost which read, West Rim, Prescott Ore Trail. Why are so many trails around here named Prescott? I asked. Is this Prescott Mountain or something? Kimber laughed. No, dummy. It's because of the Prescotts. You know, the family that lives in the mansion up on Fairmont? Mr. Prescott and his son Jimmy own like half the businesses in town. More than half, Kyle agreed. Which ones? Does he own the GameStop? The only store in Jersking I really cared about. I don't know about that one. Kyle wound a lock around the 4 bikes and clicked the bar into place, then spun the numbers on the dial. But, like the hardware store, the pharmacy, Glitton's on 2nd, and the newspaper. Did they start this town? I asked. Nah, mining started the town. I think they... I want to go home. Parker had been so quiet, I'd completely forgotten he was there. You can't go home. Kyle rolled his eyes. Mom said I had to bring you. Come on. It's only like a 2-mile walk. I want to take my bike, Parker answered. Too bad. We're going off trail. I don't want to go. I'll stay with the bikes. Don't be such a wussy. I'm not. Kyle, be nice. Kimber hissed. He's only 5. I'm 6, Parker objected. I'm sorry, 6. You're 6. Kimber smiled at him. All right, fine. He can hold your hand if he wants, but he's coming. Kyle turned and started up the trail. Parker fell face first into an undignified frown. But when the charming Kimber stuck her hand out and wiggled her fingers at him, he took it. Kyle was right. It wasn't a long walk. Only a half-mile down the trail and then another half-mile hike on a well-tread path up to the mountain. It was a steep climb, though, and by the time we got to the treehouse, I was winded. What do you think? Kyle asked, excitedly. I studied the tree as I caught my breath. It's pretty awesome. I smiled. And it was. They hadn't lied. The treehouse was the biggest I'd ever seen. It had multiple rooms, and there were actual curtains in the windows. The sign above the door said, Ambercott Fort, and a rope ladder hung down below the threshold, missing several planks. I'm going up first, yelled Parker, but Kimber caught his arm. You have to do the ceremony first, or you'll disappear, she reminded him. That'd be fine by me, Kyle grumbled. I was eager to get into the fort myself. Give me the knife. I held out my hand. Kyle smiled and dug the switchblade out of his pocket. There's some space in the back to carve your name. I opened up the knife, walked around the tree, looking for an empty spot. There were so many names on the tree that I had to crunch down and look near the bottom since I couldn't reach any higher. I spotted both Kyle and Kimber's carvings on the tree. I finally found a spot I liked near the ladder. I bit my tongue and carved Sam W. into a blank piece of bark underneath someone named Paul S. Parker. Oh, named Paul S. Parker went next, but had so much trouble with the knife that Kyle had to do it for him. All right, let's go. I ran over to the rope ladder. Wait! Kyle yelled. You have to say the words first. Oh, yeah. Oh, okay, what are they? Kimber sang them out. Underneath the triple tree, there is a man who waits for me. And should I go or should I stay, my fate's the same either way. That's creepy, I said. What does it mean? Kimber shrugged. No one knows anymore. It's just tradition. Okay. Can you say it one more time, slower? Once Parker and I had recited the poem, we were ready to go. I climbed the rope ladder first and took stock of my new surroundings. The treehouse was more or less empty. Just a dirty rug here and there and some trash. Old soda cans, beer cans, and fast food wrappers. I went room to room, 4 in total, and found nothing of real interest until the last one. An old mattress lay in the corner, piles of musty, ripped clothing scattered the floor. Did a hobo live here? I asked. Nah, this room has been like this for as long as I can remember, Kyle said from the doorway behind me. It smells gross, I said. Kimber walked up to the threshold, but refused to go any further. It's not the smell that freaks me out. It's that. She pointed up to the ceiling, and I raised my eyes to read what was written there. Road to the gates of hell, mile marker 1. What does it mean? I asked. It's just the older kids being dicks, Kyle said. Come on, I'll show you the best part of the treehouse. We walked back into the first room, and Parker looked up at us and smiled, pointing down to what he'd clumsily carved into the wooden floor. Bart, Kyle read. That's hilarious, Parker. He rolled his eyes, but his little brother didn't pick up on the sarcasm and smiled proudly. Kimber sat down on the floor next to Parker, and I sat on his other side. Kyle took the knife from his brother and then walked across the room and wedged the blade between 2 planks of the wooden wall. He pushed, and the board gave, opening up a small, secret compartment in the wall. Kyle took something out and pushed the plank back in until it was flush with the others. Check it out. He turned around and proudly held up 2 cans of Miller Lite beer. Whoa, I said. Ew, warm beer? That's gross. How did you even know it was there? Kimber asked. Bill Saunders told me. Are we gonna drink it? I asked. Hell yeah, we're gonna drink it. Kyle came and sat down in our circle, popped open the first beer and offered it to Kimber. She eyed it like he was trying to hand her a dirty diaper. Come on, Kimmy. Don't call me that. She yelled at him, then reluctantly took the open beer. She smelled it and made a face, then pinched her nose and took a small swig. Kimber shuddered. Ugh. That was even grosser than I imagined. I don't want any. I'll tell Mom, Parker said quickly as the beer passed in front of him to me. Good, 'cause you ain't getting any, Kyle promised. And you won't tell Mom shit. I put on my best poker face and took a long, deep swallow of the warm beer before I had the chance to smell it. It was a poor decision, and when I retched, the foul yellow liquid went all over my shirt. Oh man, now I'm gonna smell like beer. We spent the next hour and a half drinking the 2 cans of Miller Lite, and after a while, the taste grew more tolerable. I couldn't tell if I was becoming a man or actually getting drunk. I hoped it was the former. When the last drop of the last beer was consumed, we spent 20 minutes trying to determine if we were drunk. Kyle assured us that he was wasted, while Kimber wasn't sure. I didn't think I was, but I failed all our drunk tests. Kimber was in the middle of reciting the alphabet backwards when a loud, metallic grinding suddenly pierced the calm mountain air like a gunshot. Kimber stopped talking, and we spent a few minutes staring at each other, waiting for the noise to end. Parker curled into Kimber and put his hands over his ears. After what seemed like 10 whole minutes, the sound ended as suddenly as it had begun. What was that? I asked, and Parker mumbled something into Kimber's sweatshirt. Do you guys know? I tried again. Kimber stared at her feet and she crossed and uncrossed them. Well? It's nothing, Kyle answered finally. We hear it sometimes in town. It's not a big deal. It's just louder up here. And what's making that sound? Baraska? Kimber whispered, without taking her eyes off her feet. Who's that? I asked. Not who, where, Kyle answered. It's a place. Another town? No, it's just a place in the woods. Oh. Bad things happen there, Kimber said, more to herself than me. Like what? Bad things, Kimber repeated. Yeah, don't ever try to find it, dude, Kyle said to me. Or bad things will happen to you, too. But like, what bad things? I turned around. Kyle shrugged and Kimber stood up and walked over to the rope ladder. We'd better go. I have to get home to my mom, she said. We climbed down the ladder one by one, and then started the walk back to the trail in an unfamiliar silence. I was dying of curiosity about Baraska, but couldn't decide if and what to ask about it. So, who lives there? Where? Kyle asked. Baraska? The skinned men, Parker asked. Kyle laughed. Only babies believe that. Like men who are skinned? Like their skin is gone? I asked excitedly. Yeah, that's what some kids say. Most of us stop believing in that, though. When we turn double digits, Kyle said. I looked back at Kimber, who was still 9 like me, but she was staring down the trail, ignoring us. That seemed to be the end of the conversation, and by the time we reached our bikes, the awkwardness was gone, and we were giggling, trying to decide if we were too drunk to bike home. School started 2 days later, and I'd completely forgotten about Baraska. When my dad pulled up to the curb to drop me off that morning, he locked the doors before I could get out. Not so fast. Hang on. Not so fast. He laughed. As your father, I get the privilege of giving you a hug and telling you to have a good first day at school. But, Dad, I gotta go meet Kyle by the flag before the first bell. And you will. But give me a hug first. In a few years, you'll be driving yourself to school. Let me be your dad while I still can. Fine, I said, exacerbated, and leaned over to give my dad a quick hug. Thank you. Now, go on, meet your friend. Your mom will be waiting here to pick you up at 3:40. I know, Dad. Why can't I take the bus like Whitney? When you're 12, you can take the bus. He smiled and unlocked the doors. Until then, I get to drop you off in the mornings. If you think it'd make you look cooler, you can ride in the back seat behind the cage. Dad, just don't. I threw open the door of the cruiser before he could say anything more, and ran as he laughed behind me. Kyle was already waiting for me at the flagpole, and he'd found Kimber too. Dude, you almost missed the bell, he yelled when he saw me. I know, sorry. Whose class are you in? Kimber asked. She was wearing a red sweater and leggings with frogs on them. Her curly orange hair was brushed into ringlets, and her lips were pink and shiny. She'd never looked prettier, and I was surprised to realize I'd never really seen Kimber as a girl. Mr. Diamonds? Me too, she said cheerfully. Lucky, Kyle scoffed. I'm in Mrs. Birdie's. Only 2 4th-grade teachers, and I get the crappy one. Kimber grimaced. Yeah, my mom had her when she was a kid. What's wrong with her? What did she say? Just that she's strict, gives out homework on the weekends. On the weekends? Fuck. Excuse me, Mr. Landy? Excuse me, Mr. Landy? I immediately recognized the tall man that had suddenly appeared behind the white-faced Kyle. Sorry, sir, I meant, dang. Kimber giggled. I am sure you did. He nodded. I'm sure you did. He nodded. Hi, Sheriff Clary. Even though I'd only met him a few times, I liked my dad's boss, and he liked me. Well, hello, Salmon. Are you excited for your first day? Sheriff Clary crossed his arms in front of him and widened his stance imposingly, but gave me a wide smile. Yes, sir, I said, and then added lamely, what are you doing here? I'm giving a presentation to the 5th and 6th grades about safety when walking to and fro school. Yeah, he gives it every year, Kyle muttered. Cool. I smiled. Sheriff Clary nodded at me, then turned and walked away. I looked around, confused. Where's Kimber? She took off. She is annoyingly on time to everything. As if to illustrate his point, the bell rang. We both ran up the stairs and inside. I walked into class and saw that Kimber had saved me a spot next to her at the back. Mr. Diamond, a short, round man of 40 or so, nodded at me when I came in. Mr. Walker, I presume? Yeah, that's me, I mumbled as I rushed past him to the desk next to Kimber. Welcome to Drisking Elementary. And for the rest of you, welcome back. Go Grizzlies! The class echoed a reluctant and subdued, Go Grizzlies! Yeah, woo! Kimber introduced me to other kids in the class throughout the morning. Most of them were nice, if sort of underwhelmed by me. And they said their hellos and asked where I was from, and conversations usually ended with an unimpressed, okay. A group of girls who sat near the front snuck looks at us all morning and snickered. I asked Kimber who they were, and she just shrugged. During our second break, they came up and talked to me. Are you friends with Kimber DeStaro? A tall, dark-haired girl asked me. Yeah, I answered and looked over at Kimber. She was watching me with worried eyes. Are you related to her? No. I didn't think so, because you don't have orange hair. I didn't know what to say to that. You don't have to be friends with her, you know, said the second girl with the oddly round face. I wanna be friends with her. The third girl behind the other two snorted. She had pretty auburn hair and a rude, upturned nose. Well, if you do, you're going to be in the ugly kid group, the first girl warned. And once you're in that group, you can't ever leave it, like ever. Better than the bitch group, I said. Rude nose and round face gasped, but dark hair smiled. We'll see, she said, and the three returned to their corner of the room. I sat back down next to Kimber, feeling like a badass. It was the first time I'd ever used a swear word in front of anybody other than Kyle. What did they say to you? Kimber asked nervously. They said you're too pretty to be near them, and that you make them look gross, so we have to stay away from them. Liar, Kimber answered, but I could tell she was smiling. We met Kyle in the cafeteria at lunch, and he had nothing but bad things to say about his morning. Mrs. Verdi was old and mean, and she made everybody come up and say something about themselves, even though the class only had 14 kids, and they all knew each other. When the bell rang for recess, I went to throw my lunch away with Kyle, and I bumped into a kid I hadn't seen before. Hey, are you Sam Walker? The kid asked. Yeah. Oh, your sister is dating my brother. Oh man! Kyle laughed. Your sister is dating a Whittaker? Oh! Oh! Shut up, Kyle, the kid grumbled. She's gonna be Whitney Whittaker. As funny as it was, I couldn't help but be a little surprised. Not that I'd been paying attention, but I'd only seen Whitney out of her room once over the summer. Where did she meet him? I asked the Whittaker kid. I don't know. Probably at his job. His job where? He works at Drisking Water. It didn't make any sense to me, but I shrugged it off. I did remember my mom giving Whitney some menial tasks, like getting the car washed and setting up some utilities to get her out of the house. Maybe she met him once and they started dating over text? Teenagers were weird. The rest of the school week followed much like the first. We were well into the first month when I heard someone mention the skinned men again. We were out on the playground. Kyle and I were trying to start a fire with 2 large wood chips I'd just given myself a splinter when the distant sound of metal grinding on metal flooded over the playground, silencing every one of us. "Baraska," I said in awe. "Yep," said Phil Saunders. "The skinned men kill again." Hey, Kyle said only babies believed in skinned men. I threw an accusatory look at Kyle. They do. Phil is just stupid. Am not. Ask Danielle, she's seen them. Phil scanned the playground and then yelled at a blonde girl, talking to Rude Nose. "Hey, Danielle, come here!" The blonde girl rolled her eyes, but came skipping over anyway. "What do you want?" "I told you Kayla doesn't like you, Philip." "No, tell them about the skinned men." Phil gestured to the air around us, which was filled with the metallic scraping coming down from the mountain. "You tell them." "No, you saw them, so you tell them." "I didn't see them. Paige saw them." "Oh," Phil said, and an uncomfortable silence descended. "You guys are weird," Danielle said, before flipping her hair in our faces and leaving. "Who's Paige?" I asked when she'd gone. "Her sister," Phil said. "Paige disappeared when we were like 5, Kyle said. "After she saw the skinned men," Phil added. The sounds from the mountain abruptly ended, and the subdued atmosphere of the playground disappeared with it. When the bell rang, Kyle lined up in his class line, and since Phil was in my class, I made sure I was behind him. The teachers began to count us off. "Hey, what else do you know about Baraska?" I whispered to him. "My brother said that's where people go when they disappear. To Baraska." "What happens to them there?" "Bad things." "No, shh," he said, and then shushed me when I asked him what that meant. The year dragged on, and it wasn't until Christmas break that I heard the machine at Baraska again. It was December, and there was a thick blanket of snow on the ground, which only served to amplify the noise from the mountain. I sat in my room listening to it for a few minutes, trying to decide what was happening in the place that bad things happen. I saw my dad's cruiser pull up out the window and went downstairs to greet him. As I passed my sister's door, I heard her giggling in that annoying teenage girl way, and I cringed. I hoped Kimber never got like that. "Dad!" I skidded on the landing just as he opened the door. My dad stomped the snow off his boots and threw open his arms. "Sammy, how many years has it been?" he joked. It was true. I hadn't seen much of my dad lately, since he was working so much. Doing what? I didn't know, since this was the quietest, lamest town ever. No, doing what? I didn't know, since this was the quietest, lamest town ever. Mom thought the sheriff was grooming Dad for his job, since Clary was so old and Dad never really agreed or disagreed with her. He'd only been at the department 7 months, after all, and he doubted people in the country would vote for him. Hey, Dad, do you hear that, like, machine-sounding noise? Yep, I heard it in town every now and then. You know what it is? I asked the sheriff about it, and he told me the noise comes from private property up in the Ozarks. Is the property called Baraska? I asked quickly. I have no idea. Baraska? Where do you hear that? I shrugged. Kids at my school? Well, it's nothing to worry about, Sammy. Probably just some logging equipment. But is the place called Baraska? Like, have you heard that name before? No, I have not heard it before. Dad pulled his boots off and shrugged off his coat, looking toward the kitchen. I could tell I was losing him. Have you ever heard of the Skinned Men? I asked quickly. Skinned Men? Good God, Sam, is your sister telling you these stories? No, but he wasn't listening to me anymore. Whitney! Whitney! He yelled up the stairs. No, Dad, Whitney doesn't even talk to me, I repeated. I heard a door creak open upstairs and Whitney peered over the railing, phone in hand and an annoyed look on her face. Are you trying to scare your brother? Dad demanded. Dad, no, I said again. Whitney shot me a betrayed look. Seriously? As if I'd waste my time. You aren't telling him stories about skinned men? No, Dad. No, Dad. I told you I heard it at school, I said. Whitney gestured to me as if to say, see? All right. Well, you kids need to start getting along. Your family, for Christ's sake. Whitney rolled her eyes, and when Dad walked into the kitchen, she stuck her tongue out at me. Real mature, Whitney! I yelled up at her, but she was already gone. I'll tell Dad about your boyfriend! Christmas came and went with surprising smoothness at our house. Aw. Yo, let me pause for a moment. Raid. Welcome, everybody, to the night of horrors, the night of spooks and scary times. Welcome. How you doing, Code? I pray you had a dandy stream. Martin Carl. No, I don't know who Martin Carl is. Who is that? Who is this Martin Carl? It was fun. Nice. You've been playing through Spider-Man again, right? But hey guys, frickin' welcome to the stream. I am Merry Mitch, but on Saturday nights, I am replaced by my doppelganger. Oh shoot, I forgot the name we gave him. Something like Malicious Mitch. For on these nights, I read through, scary stories, creepypastas, and the like, in an effort to practice my voice acting. It's a pretty fun time. Yes, Spooky Mitch. And that's specifically for Saturdays. Other nights are differently themed. But heck yeah, I hope everybody's been having a swell night. And if you're looking for something to sit back and relax to, you've come to the right place. You're in your dark attic? Dude. Perfect. Perfect. Dude, that means the spooks and scares will be even more intense. Spidery Mantis. I like your name, by the way. Yes, sorry. Before we get back into it, big time trigger warning. If you are sensitive to the subjects that follow, sexual abuse, mental health problems, drug abuse, and what was the other one? Drug abuse, sexual assault, violence. Basically, this is rated M for mature. Maybe R? Would this be rated R? It might be rated R. So, regardless, viewers' discretion advised. Yeah, you might be jumping in kind of in the middle of the story, but I could give you guys a little recap if you'd like to be clear on what all has happened in the story so far. Yeah, I'll go ahead and do the recap. So this is a story called Baraska by C.K. Walker. It is a story of, the classic tale of a father having to move his whole family due to work. The 14-year-old daughter is, beside herself, so upset because she has to leave all that she knows and her boyfriend. But the 9-year-old kid, Sammy, is excited. It's a new adventure. It's a new place. It's an exciting thing to get to move somewhere. And since they moved at the start of the summer, they had all summer to kind of get a lay of the land before the startup of the season. The school season, that is. He met during that time his two best friends, Kyle, one of his neighbors, and Kimber, the redheaded girl, who got along with them so well, she almost kind of became one of the boys, so to speak. They had a sweet moment where Kimber and Kyle finally introduced Sammy to this big treehouse, and it was there that the first mentioning of Baraska happened. They heard this immense, granular, metallic scraping sound echo down the mountain as they were sitting in this treehouse, drinking beer of all things. And when Sammy asked, oh, what is this? Things got intense. Kimber started staring at her shoes and whispering her responses. Kyle started brushing questions off. Seems like they were avoiding this Baraska and the tale of the skinned men. Apparently, all we know right now is that bad things happen at Baraska, and seems like nobody truly knows what it's all about and what it's for, other than, that bad things happen. And the beginning of the school year has just started up, and that's about where we are in the story. Right on. I hope that was a sufficient little recap for you. Now I will... Spicy. Hey, Knight. How you doing? I pray your night has been going swimmingly, Have you been feeling better? How goes the health? The health? The health. Well, alright. let's go ahead and get back into the story. So, this is Baraska by C.K. Walker. Christmas came and went with surprising smoothness at our house. Whitney and I got everything we'd had on our lists, which was a first for us. The town may be smaller, but Dad's paychecks were clearly better. I wore my new Rams parka on the first day back to school after Christmas break. Kyle fawned over it, and Kimber showed off the blue pearl necklace her mom had gotten her for Christmas. Kyle and I feigned interest, but did it poorly. Kimber knew, but she just seemed happy we cared enough to fake it. As we said goodbye to Kyle for the morning, Kimber was suddenly slammed from the side. Kyle caught her before she fell, and I spun around, angrily, to see dark-haired girl, whose name I'd learned was Phoebe Dranger. I laughed, laughing and walking away from us with round-faced girl. "You're bad people who make poor life choices," Kyle yelled at them. "When I'm boss someday, I'll make you clean bathrooms." "Yeah, and if Kyle's your boss, you know you messed up," I added. Kyle and I high-fived and turned to Kimber, but she wasn't sharing in our victory. She was trying to hide the tears on her face. "Don't sweat those girls, Kimber. Nobody likes them. People are just nice to them because they're related to the Prescotts." Kyle tried to give her an awkward pat on the back, but Kimber turned away from him and ran in the opposite direction. "I hate those girls. Like, I really hate them," I said. "I know. They're bitches," Kyle answered. "Oh, they're bitches," Kyle answered, mouthing the last word as he looked over his shoulder for any lurking adults. "Well, I'd better get to class and make sure they don't try to talk to her again. There's an assembly this morning. No class until after lunch." "Seriously? That's awesome! Do we have to sit by class?" Not usually, but we better get there quick so we can get seats at the back," Kyle said as we started walking. "What's the assembly for?" I asked. "It's either DARE or the History Society presentation." "What's DARE?" "You know, DARE. D-A-R-E. As in, don't you dare do drugs or you're grounded until you're dead." "Oh, I hope it's the history thing then." We found Kimber already in the auditorium. She had collected herself and saved us both seats at the back of the room. She waved us over just as the puffy, stern Mrs. Verdi walked onto the stage. "Hello, 4th grade students. This morning, we have a special presentation for you from the Historic Preservation Society of Drisking. If you ever have questions during the course of the lecture, please raise your hand." "Like that'll happen," Kyle laughed. "Now, I'd like to introduce you to Mr. Wyatt Dowding, Mrs. Catherine Scanlon, and of course, Mrs. James Prescott." "What? Jimmy Prescott and not his dad? That's so weird," Kimber whispered. "Dude, Thomas Prescott has done this presentation every year for like 20 years, Kyle said. "It's definitely weird." "It's not weird," whispered Mike Sutton from behind us. He leaned forward. "Tony Prescott went crazy like a year ago. He didn't do the presentation last year when my sister was here either." "I don't don't like Jimmy Prescott. Kimber shook her head. He gives me the, heebie-jeebies. His dad is so much nicer. He's like a grandpa. The presentation was slow and boring. Mrs. Dowding and Mr. Dowding and Miss Scanlon talked about the first settlers here, the Cherokee and the Trail of Tears. They talked about Alexander Drisking's discovery of a motherlode of ore in the mountains, settling here with his family to mine and refine the iron. Then James Prescott took the stage from there to tell the story of his family's early journey to the town and their role in the revitalization of Drisking itself in the late 50s. The last part was the most interesting of it all. I found Jimmy Prescott to be infallibly charismatic and entertaining. I was so busy laughing at his jokes and hanging on his every word that by the end of his presentation, I realized I'd actually learned quite a bit. So much so that I was interested enough to ask a question, which Kyle warned was committing social suicide. Mrs. Prescott scanned the room and answered a few other questions before he finally got to me at the back. Yeah, you in the back. Mr. Prescott, why did the mines close? Like, what happened? I asked. Very good question, young man. What did you say your name was? Sam Walker. Ah, I believe I met your father. I met your father the other day at the sheriff's office. Welcome to Drisking. As for your questions, most of the mines were closed in 1951 after a long period of unprofitability. The mountain had simply ran out of iron ore. The mills and refineries were abandoned, and the town suffered for years. The miners and their families moved away. Stores went out of business, schools closed, and Drisking became a ghost town. That would have been the end of it, if it weren't for stubborn families like mine who refused to leave. We refused to give up the town, and after many, many years of hard work, Drisking became the picturesque little haven in the Ozarks that it is today. I hope that answers your question. I sat back down and Kyle shook his head at me. Bro. The assembly suffered through another 15 minutes of awkward Q&A until Mrs. Verdi finally cut us loose. We were released into the cafeteria to wait for the lunch lines to open. Kyle, Kimber, and I sat in our usual corner. That was so boring, Kyle whined. When are they going to figure out that no one cares about Drisking's history? Seriously, I fell asleep like 3 times. Kimber nudged me. Sam seemed to care, she teased. I just wanted to know about the mines. Mines are creepy. That's all. Yeah, but all our mines were blown up. You can't go in them anymore, Kyle said. Blown up? I asked. Kimber nodded. Pardon me. Kimber nodded. Some kids died after going into the mines, so the city set off some controlled blasts to implode the caverns. At least, that's what my mom said. They messed up, though, and I heard they blew up the water table or poisoned it or something. What? How do you know that? Kyle asked. Kimber shrugged. I heard my dad talking about it. Did they use C4 or something? I guess. So, like, we all drink the water, so we all have C4 in our bodies, and we could explode at any minute, Kyle said excitedly. Do you think that's what happened to all the missing people? I asked him. Just sitting there one day and... boom! Yeah, dude. Kyle grabbed my shoulders. And that's where the skin men come from. I made the international symbol of mind blown, and we laughed hysterically. You guys are dumb. Kimber rolled her eyes, but then she laughed when Kyle fell on the floor, pretending he was exploding. I remember thinking in that moment that I was happy here in Drisking with these two people. Happier than I'd ever been anywhere else. It was the last truly happy moment I ever had. Less than an hour later, Mr. Diamond's phone rang. He exchanged a few quiet words with the person on the other end. His eyes flicked to and from my desk. It was hard to be surprised, then, when he hung up and asked me to come up to the front. When I got there, he told me my mom was waiting for me in the office, and I was going home for the day. I traded a confused and worried look with Kimber, and then packed up my backpack and went to the office. When I got there, my mom was crying. We drove home in strained silence. I was too afraid to ask what was wrong. Mom parked the car a block from our house, which was blocked in by several police cars. When an explanation didn't come, I broke the silence myself. Is it Dad? I asked quietly. Is it Dad? I asked quietly, holding back tears. No, honey. Dad is fine, she whispered. And what happened? We never made it to school this morning. Her voice broke over my sister's name. Oh no, Mom. I think she ditched, I said quickly. I saw her leave this morning, and it was really early, like 6. And she was with her friends, Pete Whittaker, and that kid Taylor. We know all that, Sam. But they made it to school, and Whitney wasn't with them. They said she wanted to stop by the Circle K near Drisking High, so they left her there. No one has seen her since. Well, my brain struggled to come up with an explanation. Maybe she's ditching. No, honey. Mom put the car back in drive and drove up to our house, parking behind a police cruiser. Police, as well as your father, think that Whitney is with Jay. But she has a new boyfriend here. We found all her books on the floor of her room this morning, and half her clothes gone, along with some cash of your dad's. But, right now, we think that she hitched a ride to St. Louis, that she's with Jay. The sheriff's office is trying to contact the boy's parents now. Whitney, run away? Anyone who knew my sister knew she was prone to dramatics and empty threats. Plus, she was dating Chris Whittaker's older brother, Pete. I was sure of it. He walked up the steps and into a house. We walked up the steps and into a house filled with stale coffee and quiet murmurs. I tried to remember if Whitney herself had ever actually confirmed she was dating Pete, but I drew a blank. When we walked into the kitchen, I saw my father sitting at the table, staring at phone records, head in hand. He looked up when I came into the room and gave me a weak smile. Hey, buddy. Dad, I have to tell you something. I felt a heavy hand on my shoulder and turned to look up at a solemn Sheriff Clary. Everything and anything you might know, son, no matter how trivial you think it is. I nodded and sat down at the table with my dad as my mom handed the big man a cup of coffee. Here you go, Sheriff, she said weakly. Please, Mrs. Walker, call me Killian. My mother nodded and retreated back into the darkened corner to talk quietly with Sheriff Clary's wife, Grace. What do you know, Sam? My dad asked as he rested his chin on his hands in a mock symbol of prayer, as though I may deliver him from his suffering. Well, I heard Whitney had a boyfriend, that guy Pete Whittaker, that she's been hanging out with, and I saw them and Taylor Dranger leave this morning before me. And what time did they leave? Asked the sheriff. I don't know, like before 6. He nodded. That matches statements of Taylor Dranger and the Whittaker boy. My father's head sunk lower into his hands, and I knew I'd let him down. But I rushed. I don't think she went back to St. Louis because she was dating Pete. And I don't think she wanted to be with her boyfriend back home anymore. I understand that, son. But a teenage girl's mind is a complicated thing. My officers are trying to get a hold of the boyfriend's family back in St. Louis. Oh. I understand that, son. But a teenage girl's mind is a complicated thing. My officers are trying to get a hold of the boyfriend's family back in St. Louis. Clary nodded to my father. Now, why don't you head up to your room and let us work, Samuel? I looked at him in surprise. What? No, I want to stay down here. I can help. No, son. There's nothing more you can do here. You've been a good brother. Now, let us handle this. But I can help. You already have. Dad! I looked over at my dad with begging eyes. Go to your room, Sam, he said quietly after a moment. I balked. Dad? Now. I was so angry. I did the only thing that I could think of to make my rage known. I stomped upstairs, slammed the door, and then sat on my bed in disbelief. The tears came then, and I laid there feeling helpless, worthless, and scared for my sister. I thought about all the places Whitney could be. Was she scared? Was she alone? Was she dead? When the sun began to set, I finally got out of bed and went to check my email. I was expecting lots of messages from Kimber and Kyle, but there was only one. Did she go to the treehouse? I sat staring at the computer screen for almost a minute. Kimber's words from last fall echoed in my brain. If you go to the treehouse and enter it without the proper ceremony, you'll disappear, and then you'll die. I didn't buy that Whitney had gone to Circle K that morning, and I especially didn't believe that she'd hitchhiked out of town. Nothing they were saying downstairs made any sense if you knew my sister. But maybe this did. Maybe she and her boyfriend went to the treehouse to make out or something, and maybe he left her there. Maybe she'd gotten lost, or maybe the skinned men had found her. That was the worst thought of all. I didn't need to sneak out, because the police were too busy with my parents to care about me anyway. I stunk my bike out of the garage and rode the 3 miles to the West Rim Prescott Ore Trail. When I got there, I saw 2 bikes already locked to the signpost, and my 2 best friends sitting in the snow next to them. I knew you'd come, Kyle said when I pulled my bike up, and Kimber ran up to hug me. I'm so sorry, Sam. There was really nothing for me to say, and they didn't push. Kimber took my arm and we started up the trail. The silence between us was stretched, but comfortable. We trudged through the snow, and all the while I searched for the telltale footprints of others, but the snow was coming too fast. The hike up the mountain was harder and wetter than when we'd come in the fall, and when Ambercott Fort finally came into view over the ridge, it was a welcome sight. The sun was getting low. We hadn't brought our flashlights. I fell as I ran up to the tree, calling my sister's name to the quiet wild. Kyle was right behind me and leapt impressively onto the rope ladder, climbing quickly up the planks. I kept calling Whitney's name, waiting for Kyle to yell that he'd found her, or that there was at least some sign of her. And then I heard Kimber quietly say my name from where she stood at the triple tree. I ran over and tried to follow her eyes to confirm what I already knew was there. And then I found it, freshly carved near the top. Whitney W. My breath froze in my chest, and my vision blurred with unwelcome tears. And as the sun took its last desperate breath before plunging into the deep of the horizon, a deafening metallic whirl sang out from the wilderness and spilled down the mountainside. Ooh, dang, dude. That kind of escalated quickly. Yo, also, Carol, I'm pleased to hear you can be in the sun again. I know it's a big important thing for me. I find that if I don't feel the sun on my face, like at all during a day, I notice the effect. You know, I notice that effect, and it's a poor one. Well, that was Baraska, the actual start of Baraska. That's so cool, dude. I'm pumped, guys. I am pumped that we get another Baraska. We get more Baraska. Honest to goodness, I'm pumped. I don't know about you guys. Dang, we actually get Kyle in the picture too. That's what's killing me. Like it's wild to have already read Baraska V, part 5 of Baraska, and then wind up coming back to this. Goodness. Crazy. Dude, Whitney. His sister is gone. And the terrible thing is, I think I know what happened. I will say, like, I'm enjoying approaching this from a place of already knowing what Baraska is, because I've read part 5 already, but I do feel that I'm missing out slightly. I think approaching this without any knowledge and actually going in order would be kind of cool, in the sense that the mystery would still be, the mystery would still be there, Because I really dig, like, this, Stranger Things vibe of, like, there's something going on, and all they know is that bad things happen at Baraska, but what is it? What is Baraska? What's up with these skinned men? I think that there could come, like, a lot of anticipation and excitement, like, there. But the thing is, like, I still find myself, like, just as invested, if not even a little more invested, with already knowing the answer to the mystery, because of how good part 5 was. Hmm. This was written before, I think. I think? I actually don't know. Not entirely sure. I think it was published, certainly, before, but I don't know what C.K. Walker's approach to it was. Because in my mind, like, she could have had the concept of, like, part 5. She could have had that concept first and foremost, and then expanded upon it. Built up the world and seen a story in going backwards in time, kind of thing. But I could also easily see the opposite happening, where she writes this initial story, and then sees, like, the potential for a sequel, like, once they're older. Return to Baraska. I also like there was an opportunity for her to, like, make Baraska Part 5 like one of those titles, where it's like Return to Baraska or Baraska Revengeance or something. Something with, like, the sequel type title, but she kept it to just parts. Roman numerals. Baraska I. Baraska II. Yeah, man. That's what I'm saying. Like, even though I know the ending, it's just fascinating. Like, I could see myself, if I didn't know the ending, loving this in, like, a different way, where I would see, I would be invested in this mystery, like, right alongside these kids. But coming at it from the perspective of already knowing, already having the answer to this mystery, it simply offers, like, a different perspective, and one that I can still very much appreciate. The Barascaning. The Barascanning? What? The Barascaning. Baraska 5. The Baroskening. Can you imagine? I read in the comments of a few of these, and there's apparently like one of the most like upvoted comments is this dude being like, "Yo, freaking, this is amazing. Make it into a movie? Question mark? TV show?" Um, and it actually got a response from CK Walker saying that a TV show of some sort is in the works. Like it's in it. Yeah, dude, it's in the works. Like I don't know what kind of phase it's in, or if it's just like starting as like the concept for it. But yes, please. Oh, Caroline, no. Carol, no. And you didn't kill it, did you? You didn't like find it. You just saw it. Mm. Mm. That's happened to me once in my life. And thank heavens my roommate is not as afraid of spiders as I am. Because he helped me out and literally like crawled under the bed like to find where it went and nabbed it. Be right back. Burning my apartment down. See you soon. He was on your glasses? Not when you were wearing them, right? It was. Oh, and you were about to put them on? Let me switch over to this one. Just realized. Get the camera to be a little bigger. Dude, Caro. I mean, it's appropriate for the theming tonight, at least. Nightmare? Real life nightmare? True nightmare? Yep. Yep. My skin feels like spiders now. Yikes. So that is a statement. That is a statement. That's a visceral statement. But if you got him, if you killed him, if you killed the spider, feel good about that. Believe and trust that was the only one of his kind. And that now that you've shown one who's boss, they won't bother you again. You have conquered the demon. But what if there's more? You don't let yourself believe that. Don't let that thought win over, right? Because how helpful is that thought? I know. That's where I draw the line too. Well, not even like bed. I will not have spiders in the house in general. Like bugs are all good and cool. Super dope if they're just chilling doing their thing in the wild. But as soon as they enter my car or my abode, my place of dwelling, they gotta go. I've got anxiety. The thought is winning. No. Dude, how many times has that happened to me? If I had a nickel for every time that's happened to me, be a rich man. Yeah, no, that's fair. I try to do that too. The only exception is spiders and cockroaches. Any other kind of bug? Ladybug? Heck yeah. Caterpillar? Even centipede. I'll get 'em on out. I rescued a centipede from the gymnasium I work at. I think it was either last week or the week before. It was weird, dude. Like seeing just crawling along like the floor where we do our tumbles and stuff. You know, like that square blue spring floor that's in every gymnasium. It was, dude. It was just crawling along in there. I was just, dude. I was just so pleased that I was the one that found it. Because there are a lot of girls that go to the gymnasium to practice, and even the boys or anybody, dude. If you come across that as you're just like going and about to do a flip, I would fear that like somebody would see that in the midst of a flip. I mean that would be like worst case scenario, but you get where I'm going with that. You have a weird fear of centipedes after reading Uzumaki. Yup, 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 yup. Cockroaches and centipedes are the only bugs I'm actually afraid of. I will say, centipedes are hard for me. Like they're tough for me, right? Like I I feared them immensely like when I was younger, and that fear still lingers. But it's one that I can conquer for the sake of the centipede. Cause dude, like centipedes, they don't even like they can't even bite. They can't even do anything like that. And they're just like, I don't know. It's just so many legs, dude. Yes, dude, too many legs. It's like they're hypermobile, right? They're hypermobile. They're like worms with the ability to just crawl everywhere and anywhere. Silverfish scare you. Hmm. Dude, I'm surprised we've never had a conversation about like fears on these nights. Does anybody else think that's weird? A silverfish. I'm gonna look one up. I'm doing it. Pray for me. Dude, what is this thing? What are these? Is this what like the thing is based off of in Minecraft? This is a genuine question. I didn't think, I thought that was a made up thing for Minecraft. This picture just says get rid of centipedes and silverfish. Get rid of them. This thing is literally just titled. Okay, real quick, trigger warning. Please look away if you do not want to see scary centipede and silverfish. Close your eyes in 3, 2, 1. Close your eyes. Just look at this. How to get rid of centipedes and silverfish. God, look at that little bug. That little bug. Dude, he's so fascinating. Look at him. Why? How did you get so many legs, my guy? Get rid of them. Okay, I will. Indeed, that is far too much silverfish for one night. Eeh, 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 eeh. Not fun. Not fun. It's funny though, because like before I clicked on the picture, it didn't say how to get rid of centipedes and silverfish. It was ... Get rid of centipedes and silverfish. Get rid of them. Gosh, I mean, I find it hard to disagree. Yeah, and I mean, that's kind of a blessed thing, right? Like, it's not a common thing for that to happen. But I feel like it's something that happens to everyone at least once in their life. Oh, and think of it like this. If I'm a deep enough sleeper, if I can fall asleep before the spider gets to me, boom, I won't even know. Won't even know it's in my bed. Because I'll be asleep. Heck yeah. Dude, Rosie's got your back. If they try. Dude, just that image is funny to me. Like Bugs sitting in like a conference room, being like, okay, listen, this is something that no bug has ever dared to do before. Tonight, men, we go into the Nightlight's bed, and we finally take her down. After years of her freeing us into the wilds, leaving us to the wild to fend for ourselves, we finally take back what's ours. She tried to eat a dead cockroach yesterday, and I've never yelled so loud in my life. Indeed, dude, you're a threat to the bugs, to bug kind. I've never yelled so loud. That's funny. I still have like a vivid memory of a battle that unfolded at like 1 a.m. and it was Harry the cat and I against a cockroach. Harry batted him, disoriented him, was like pa 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 pa, hit him like so that he got out of his little hiding spot, and then I grabbed like my shoe and was like pow, 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 finished him off. It was a match made in heaven. It was just a good like wholesome cockroach killing time, you know. And funny enough, I'm pretty sure I've told that story on here before, but it was that impactful to me. Well, okay, guys. So my question is, do we want Sorry to leave you waiting. Had the burp. My question to you guys is, do we want to, with the last bit of our time, continue with Baraska and have that be kind of just what we do tonight? Do we want to get back to the Prisoner of Griffin Drive? You know, the story with Charlie and Luke, the two demons that haunt this house that the main character had inherited. One being this entity that can never leave the house, the other being an entity that can never enter the house. That one was actually fairly fascinating. I'm interested to see where that one goes. Or we can read a creepypasta to end the night. When I lived in the dorms, there was a roach, and I literally spent the night climbing on my furniture, not touching the ground. Laying the floor is lava. And you say bugs fear you. Tisk tisk. So yeah, let me jump over here. Before we go to the break, we have The Prisoner of Griffin Drive. We were reading that one last Saturday. That one was pretty fascinating. If you need any like refresher, if you have any questions about that one, let me know. Be happy to answer. Or we have a number of creepypastas. The Living History Project, Wendell Lane Diaries, You Shouldn't, and a shattered life. Have I read the Russian sleep experiment? Shoot, I have not. I'm always open to suggestions, especially on spooky nights. Nice. Well, if it's as good as your other suggestions, I'd say it's more than worth it. You? So it's called the Russian. Yes, I do remember your suggestions. Audio story. Oh. Is this the one? Audio transcript. Oh heck, dude, and yeah, welcome, Sammy. I'm glad to see you're here. Mitch-san, I am trying to learn anime Agyan. I don't know what that is, but it is quite hard. Do you have any words of encouragement? I have been trying to write this one letter for the past 2 hours. Please encourage me. Language, I gotcha. I was wondering what an Agyan was. Master alert. Don't give up. You can do this. If you don't believe in yourself, then believe in the me that believes in you. You can do this. You better believe it. No, but for real, give it your best. Remember that it's not necessarily the outcome that we need to put too much weight on, right? It's the effort put behind it. I tell myself that a lot at my practices, you know? If I'm struggling to get like a certain skill in gymnastics, I remind myself that so long as I'm giving my best and so long as I, continually try and continue to put in my effort and throw myself at it, then that's what really matters. It's the effort that counts. Yeah, May, more Baraska. Oh yeah. You just missed it though. I'm sad to say. You're very welcome, Master. I'm better than your teachers. Well, I'm flattered. Nice. Well, hey, it's good to have so many folks active in chat. So, I'll offer up my question again. Do we want to read a creepypasta? Revisit The Prisoner of Griffin Drive? Or continue on with Baraska? Yeah, no, for real, May. I would highly recommend it. It's basically like traveling back in time. We read, this was my bad, we read part 5 before anything else, which to be fair is a bit of a standalone story, but I didn't realize that there were 4 other parts. we just finished the first part. Um, and now, yeah, in the weeks to come, we'll be seeing seeing what the discovery of Baraska was like for our dear heroes, Sam, Kimber, and Kyle. For Kyle is actually in this one, because this is a story of them as kids. It's so exciting. Yeah, Griffin Drive was pretty sick. Heck yeah. No, we got some more to go. I think for the next 4 streams, like I think I think I'd like to save this. Yo, and this line too. Underneath the triple tree, there is a man who waits for me. And should I go or should I stay? My fate's the same either way. Oh, adios. Thank you so much for being here, Knight. And I pray you have a lovely night. And please, if it's possible, don't let that spider get to you. I pray your sleep is restful despite it. I sure think so, May. Alright, so I think I've decided on let's go with this one's short. The Russian sleep experiment. When we return, we will read. Sorry, I didn't realize the dogs were upstairs. We will read The Russian Sleep Experiment. As we're jumping into this break, guys, you guys are gonna get a sneak peek at my new song. One of the moderators here and one of my good buddies, Chimperor, Coleman, he as we were playing video games one night, I forget why it was brought up. We were talking about robots and like a robot showed up in the game, and he went, "When worlds collide, I'll be your guide," or something like that. Started quoting the SpongeBob song, "When Worlds Collide," and he suggested to me. He said, "Dude, like in jest," he said, "Oh, dude, you should totally remix that." And I didn't take it as a jest. I thought that was actually a pretty splendid idea. So, during the break, you'll get the chance to listen to my remix of When Worlds Collide. It's not exactly spooky. There's a section of it that's kind of spooky though, so you'll see though. Hope you guys enjoy it lots, and during the break, be sure to go grab any kind of snack you so desire. Get cozy, find yourself a sweater or a blanket, and return ready to feel unsettled as we settle down. And try to get up during the break, Stretch out, as I intend to. It's good for the body. And it's good for your soul. to do another SpongeBob quote. Can anybody name where that comes from? I'll give you the whole line. Yes. Didn't even need to. Thank you, Keaton. Oh, please. I have no soul. Alright, guys. With that, I'll be right back. Hope you enjoy the music. Mwah.
3,000 years later.
When worlds collide, you can run.
12 seconds
When
later.
worlds collide, you'll laugh so hard you'll swear you died. When worlds collide, hold my hand, I'll be your guide. When worlds collide, buckle up for the sweet it's right, and prepare to have your mind blown wide. When worlds collide, when worlds collide.
Meanwhile,
When worlds collide, it's a curious thing. Bet you never heard a robot and a caveman sing. In his metal chest are some working parts. How is that different from my beacon heart?
later.
I'm from the future,
And I'm from the past.
but that don't mean this printer wasn't built to last.
It was made in a lab and I was born in a cave. So let me hear you holler for this inter-airway rave.
Buckle up for this. We did right.
Who can I?
When worlds collide. Buckle up for this. We did right.
Who can I?
You can run.
But no can I?
When worlds collide.
Later, in the void.
He's not here. No more SpongeBob. No more. I may finally have found a place where I can be all alone.
You can run.
But no can I?
When worlds collide.
Loser.
What follows is a brief
Don't worry, buddy. You're doing fine.
This persisting heaviness feels like pouring rain. Why must you persist? Oh, heaviness feels like pouring rain. Holding up this weight, this weight might break. This weight might break me. I stopped answering calls, had to get more involved with finding myself. I'm two hands away from flowers at my funeral. Here lies the main. I'm two hands away from eulogies, but I don't wanna die today. It was said he's too young to be a martyr. Never got the chance to live free of the trauma. Never trusted him unless it was his father. Hope it's true what they said about karma. Cause I'm a degenerate and my meds don't work. I'm always skipping school cause Jack is on my shirt. I act up cause my liver only keeps getting so worse. And I act up cause all my friends keep taking rides in a hearse. So fuck church, I'm hurt, that burnt, need more paranoid. Don't lose faith in me, boy, I'm annoyed. I avoid and I'm sorry that I toyed with your heart. We apart, now I'm hurt and that burnt. I need more, give me more or I'll die. I'm afraid I won't survive and I tried, fuck I tried. Now I'm lying on the street, need a ride to get high. I can't stand being me, need a ride to get high. I can't stand being me. Fuck. Persisting feels like pouring rain. Why must you persist? Oh, heaviness feels like pouring rain. Holding up this weight might break. This weight might break. Look, I create to distract myself from the fact that when I look at myself, I avoid eye contact. I feel like I overact, worried to death of the traits that I lack. Get rid of these flashbacks. I didn't ask to go back. Stand back and look back at all of my setbacks. So many times I have turned back to kick that, grabbed onto my drawbacks and come back to cut back. But how can a sats act like me cut back when I keep all of my drawbacks in my backpack? Like a bunch of fucking useless knickknacks. I'm sure I'll bounce back. But for now, guess I'll just hang back. I feel this eyes have been taken. It's as poor had to be not involved with finding myself too high away. It's like pulling rain. Holding up this weight. This weight might break. This weight might break me. But I don't wanna die today. Never got the chance to live free of the trauma. He's too young to be a martyr. Never got the chance to live free of the trauma. Hello, and welcome back.
Hope everybody had a dandy break. I myself had a nice one. I haven't stretched all that much today, so getting up and stretching out actually did a lot for me. Yeah, I'm kind of mainly realizing it now as I'm talking about it, but that was a darn nice stretch. For those of you that caught the song, I'm curious to know your thoughts. Thank you, May. I appreciate you shouting out that it was dope. But honest opinions, I haven't released it yet, so I am looking for critique. Or feedback in general, whether that be encouragement, enthusiasm, critique, so be it. I want to know. Were there parts to it that you liked more than others? Did you feel it could be ordered in a different way or approached in a different light? Would you have preferred that some parts be... I don't know, you know, these are just things that I'm throwing out there, but that's the kind of stuff I'm looking for. Because I dig the dark turn that it takes at the point where it goes, you know, it seemingly ends, but then the announcer comes in and goes, later, in the void, in the void, or later, in the void. Let me see if I can actually do that voice. Later, in the void, later, in the void. I'm not. I'd have to refine that. But when it goes to that part, and you know, with the part with Squidward screaming and going like, I gotta get out of here. I don't know. I like that dark turn that it takes, because in my mind, I saw it, and you know, the lyrics are like, you know, supposed to be like lighthearted with like, you know, you can run, but no can hide. But I thought about it and I was like, I do want to get like a jolly, like bump in kind of vibe going, but then I wanna shoot it low and like incorporate that what was it, like CP like 9000? I forget what the episode was exactly called, but the one where Squidward goes to the future and breaks the time machine and ends up in the void. I wanted to incorporate that because it fit with the theme, you know. Well, okay. Cool beans. Those are my thoughts on it. Again, I welcome any critique if anybody has any. But it appears that I am hearing only crickets in the chat, so we'll move on to the next story of the night. This next one is called The Russian Experiment, The Russian Sleep Experiment, and it is written by, excuse me? Hello? Let me make sure this isn't just a... Yeah, no. It's written by somebody. I guess it's an audio excerpt, so... Or an audio transcript, rather. So there isn't really an author. Not sure if it's a true story. Let's see what we got. Deep within the Soviet Union, 1945, a dedicated Russian scientist, Gary Brunner, begins an experiment on 3 Nazi war criminals: Felix Nast, Michael Bugard, Hans Berlitz, aka Zach Ross, and Ulrich Schultz, aka Brett Solferino, are held within a sealed chamber for 30 days under the effects of an experimental sleep deprivation gas. These men are kept awake to deal with their demons and fight psychological trauma, all while being methodically analyzed by the scientists. Audio transcript may contain errors. Good evening. Please state your name, age, and weight. Felix Nast, age 41 years, 58 kilos. Ulrich Schultz, age 29, 71 kilos. Hans Berlitz, age 19. Hans Berlitz, age 19, 68 kilos. Oh wait, these are the Nazis. My bad. I'm giving them Russian accents when they should be German, I assume. Felix Nast, age 41. I'm gonna just go with normal accents. Felix Nast, age 41 years, 58 kilos. Ulrich Schultz, age 29, 71 kilos. Hans Berlitz, age 19, 68 kilos. Very good. You gentlemen are about to undergo an experiment that will benefit the soldiers of the Soviet Union. You will be given a gas that our nation's leading scientists have been working on. All we know is that it is not lethal. You will be in no physical harm throughout the duration of the experiment. Upon completion of this experiment, you will be granted your freedom and returned to your homeland. Do you comply? Reminder, those who do not comply will be immediately executed for your crimes against humanity and Soviet Union. I'll ask you once more, gentlemen. Do you comply? Very good. We will administer the gas in a few moments. Please, get acquainted with your new home. You will all notice that you have enough food for the duration of the experiment. You will find comfort on the floor as you had in your cell, books for entertainment, a toilet for the obvious. Also, no one will be entering the room once the gas has been released, so it is up to you to keep your living quarters livable. The gas has been administered. Sure, is different on the side of the gas. Oh, sure is different on the other side of the gas. Day 1. The first batch of gas has been released. Normal behavior resumes. Boy, your name is Hans. Yes. Well, Hans, it is so nice to see the face of the boy who has been crying in the cell next to me the past 3 months. Oh. Well, Hans, it is so nice to see the face of the boy who has been crying in the cell next to me the past 3 months. Oh, come on now. Don't you think we should all be friends while we're in here? Let me guess. Your father was a good, hard-working man, taken too soon. Your mother was a housekeeper, and you were the youngest of 4 children, the runt of the pack. You joined the war to prove something of yourself, only to end up a victim of circumstances, am I right? I was the youngest of 3 children. Ah, that was close. What about you? Ulrich, is it? Well, Hans, I will tell you my story if you tell me yours. Okay. Well, I was a top SS scientist specializing in information extraction and experimentation. I took great pride in my work. It was almost therapeutic. I can still see the faces of the men. I extracted fingernails, teeth. How quickly they would rat out their own families to save their lives. Such lonely dogs. Your turn. I was stationed just outside of Berlin. I didn't see much of the war. Just the end of it. I was appointed guard duty one night. I was supposed to stay awake for the duration of the night, but I fell asleep. When I awoke, everyone was slaughtered. I ran as fast as I could and as far as I could, but they caught me. Took me to a prison where I sat for 3 months until I ended up here.
I thought as much. What's your story?
The gas has been active for 4 days, and although none of them have slept for the past 4 days, normal behavior resumes. The gas seems to be quite effective. These anatomy books are embarrassingly inaccurate. It is no wonder these Russians are so barbaric. Oh,
these anatomy books are embarrassingly inaccurate. It is no wonder these Russians are so barbaric. They killed your father, didn't they? Bitte. Bitte. Ulrich Schultz. Ulrich.
Put Felix and us down now, or we will end the experiment, and you will be shot.
Stop this, or they'll shoot you.
Stop this, or they'll shoot you.
You talk too much.
Ulrich.
The gas has been
active for 7 days now. Normal behavior resumes outside of the outburst on day 4. The men have still yet to sleep. Time for some... Oh. Time for some personal business. Hey, what happened the other day?
I almost killed Felix. What's happened with you?
You know what I mean.
No one intervened.
It's a little bit hard without like clear signs of who's talking. Real quick, bear with me. No, that's not it. Alright, so it turns out this was the right one. Seeing if there might be one with a, with like, you know, little things next to it. Titles, who's talking. It's okay, man. I'll do my best.
I almost killed Felix. What's happened with you? You know what I mean. No one intervened. No one stopped you. You just looked at the wall and dropped him. What did you see? Look, at least tell me your story. Everyone's got a story. I was a soldier, and like you, not a very good one. I wasn't cruel in what I did, but what I stood for was damning enough, I suppose. What we all stood for was damning enough. I was stationed at a camp, a labor camp. My father was the commanding officer of the camp. He was a good man, as I remember from my childhood, but something changed in him. I went to his office one day to deliver a daily report. I opened the door. He had his back turned to me. I called to him, but he didn't answer. He just put the barrel of his Luger, and he... If there was one thing I could have asked him, it would be why. Was it fear? Was it remorse? Was it grief? That's why I tried. Aldrich, I don't know how much more I can take of this. I haven't slept in days. None of us have. Must be what the gas does. Keeps you awake. They're going to use it on their soldiers, so they don't require sleep. I can't do this anymore. I can't breathe in my own skin. I have to get out of here. Just think of your freedom. That's what's keeping me going. You really think we'll be gifted? You really think we'll be gifted freedom after this? Day 12. Oh. Day 12. Hans has been screaming for the past 7 hours. What seems strange is that the other men have not reacted in any way. Hans has been screaming now for the past 12 hours. His screams have been replaced with a faint whimper, it seems. He has permanently destroyed his vocal cords. Sleep Experiment Day 12, June 14th, 1945, and log. Felix, have you come to say hello? What are you thinking, Felix? That's why you're in there. I'm out here. Sleep Experiment Day 15. Day 15. Sleep Experiment. Felix, I demand the papers removed from the window. Felix. Remove the paper. Felix! Day 15. Felix has covered the port window with paper from the book in what appears to be his own excrement. Strange noises have been coming from inside the cell, but the oxygen levels show that the men are still awake and alive. I'm not sure how much longer the experiment can go on. Experiment Day 15, June 17th, 1945. Gentlemen, the experiment is over. We are turning off the gas and opening the chamber. Stand back against your wall, or you will be shot. Upon examination, you will be freed. We no longer wish to be freed. Day 20 of the sleep experiment. Upon opening the chamber, it became clear the level of mental damage caused by the gas. The men have ripped into their own flesh. The amount of blood lost by the 3 men should have killed them all. Hans was rushed to the emergency room. He tried to utter words, Words, but his torn vocal cords allowed only a weak whisper. After fighting to stay awake under the anesthesia, he died on the operating table. 11:45 p.m. Felix was sent to the emergency room. He begged to be put back on the gas, screamed in agonizing pain when we brought the anesthesia anywhere near him. We then attempted the surgery without it. He died the second his eyes closed from fatigue. 12:14 a.m. I left Ulrich in the chamber to be alone with me. I needed answers. Ulrich, what happened? What did you do? Hell could not wait for these men. The doctor, sicker than his patients. The boy allowing his own kind to perish on account of his own negligence. The man who blindly follows evil for the sake of convenience. Without the fortitude of unconsciousness, all men will share this fate. What are you? I'm awake. I'm awake. Whether or not you believe these men deserve this fate is irrelevant. No man can decide this. I only hope the world will forgive my part in this experiment. What these men did will be forever written in history. But I can still erase what I've done. End log, June 22nd, 1945. I'd like to listen through the actual audio. We won't listen to it on the stream here, but I'd like to actually hear it, because I'm imagining like this is a transcript from actual audio, right? Dude, sleep isn't freaking crazy important, dude. Any man will go insane if left with enough nights of unrest. That's spelling. This is nonfiction, I think. Maybe. It seems like it could be. I mean, I don't, like, I'm not able to say for certain whether it's fake or not. Ah. Well, that could prove it then. Even so, I don't know. I don't feel confident saying one way or the other. Supposedly, this experiment is real? I don't know, what makes me think that it might be not real is that a dedicated Russian scientist, these in parentheses parts, I'm pretty sure this means, like, these are the actors, right, that played these people in the take, right? Felix Nast, played by Michael Bugard, right? I don't know. That's what I imagine, at least. Okay. I'd like to read at least one more tonight. We have 3 to choose from. A Shattered Life, Wendell Lane Diaries, You Shouldn't, or The Living History Project. Or, hang on.
Or we could read, oh snap, yo. The Russian sleep experiment was a suggestion from Sammy. Nice. Great minds think alike. Gateway of the mind. Seems interesting. Yeesh. Oof. He's got a spooky picture. And it's only 2 minutes long. Heck. So, this is Gateway of the Mind by an anonymous author. In 1983, a team of deeply pious scientists conducted a radical experiment in an undisclosed facility. The scientists had theorized that a human without access to any senses or ways to perceive stimuli would be able to perceive the presence of God. They believed that the 5 senses clouded our awareness of eternity, and without them, a human could actually establish contact with God by thought. An elderly man who claimed to have nothing left to live for was the only test subject to volunteer. To purge him of all his senses, the scientists performed a complex operation in which every sensory nerve connected to the brain was surgically severed. Although the test subject retained full muscular function, he could not see, hear, taste, smell, nor feel. With no possible way to communicate with or even sense the outside world, he was alone with his thoughts. Scientists monitored him as he spoke aloud about his state of mind in jumbled, slurred sentences that he couldn't even hear. After 4 days, the man claimed to be hearing hushed, unintelligible voices in his head. Assuming it was an onset of psychosis, the scientists paid little attention to the man's concerns. 2 days later, the man cried that he could hear his dead wife speaking to him, and even more, he could communicate back. The scientists were intrigued, but were not convinced until the subjects started naming dead relatives of the scientists. He repeated personal information to the scientists that only their dead spouses and parents would have known. At this point, a sizable portion of scientists left the study. After a week of conversing with the deceased through his thoughts, the subject became distressed, saying the voices were overwhelming. In every waking moment, his consciousness was bombarded by hundreds of voices that refused to leave him alone. He frequently threw himself against the wall, trying to elicit a pain response. He begged the scientists for sedatives, so he could escape the voices by sleeping. This tactic worked for 3 days, until he started having severe night terrors. The subject repeatedly said that he could see and hear the deceased in his dreams. Only a day later, the subject began to scream and claw at his non-functional eyes, hoping to sense something in the physical world. The hysterical subject now said the voices of the dead were deafening and hostile, speaking of hell and the end of the world. At one point, he yelled, "No heaven, no forgiveness." For 5 hours straight, he continually begged to be killed, but the scientists were convinced that he was close to establishing contact with God. After another day, the subject could no longer form coherent sentences. Seemingly mad, he started to bite off chunks of flesh from his arm. The scientists rushed into the test chamber and restrained him to a table so he could not kill himself. After a few hours of being tied down, the subject halted his struggling and screaming. He stared blankly at the ceiling as teardrops silently streaked across his face. For 2 weeks, the subject had to be manually rehydrated due to the constant crying. Eventually, he turned his head and, despite his blindness, made focused eye contact with a scientist. For the first time in the study, he whispered, "I have spoken with God, and he has abandoned us." And his vital signs stopped. There is no apparent cause of death. Yikes, dude. The kombucha nearly went down the wrong pipe. Humans can lick too. Well, that was a real short one, so I'd like to do one more. Let's do one of the ones that I'd prepared. A Shattered Life. Warning, this story contains madness, paranoia, mental illness, monsters, creatures, and cryptids, science fiction, and aliens. Listener beware. This is A Shattered Life by Matt Demersky. I don't know when you're going to read this, but I can tell you when it started. I was out for a walk alone in the woods when the entity came for me. It was beyond a blur. It was, for lack of a better term, absence of meaning. Where it hid, there were no trees. Where it crept closer, there was no grass. Through the arc it leapt at me. There was no breeze of motion. There was no air at all. As it struck, I felt the distinct sensation of claws puncturing me somewhere unseen. Somewhere I'd never felt before. My hands and arms and legs and torso seemed fine, and I wasn't bleeding, but I knew I'd been injured somehow. As I fearfully ran back home, I could tell that I was less. I was vaguely tired, and it was hard to focus at times. The solution at that early stage was easy. A big cup of coffee helped me feel normal again. For a while, that subtle drain on my spirit became lost in the ebb and flow of caffeine in my system. You could say my life began that week. Actually, because that was when I met Ma. She and I got along great, though, to be honest, I'm pretty sure I fell in love with her over the phone before we even met. It was almost as if the strong emotions of that first week made the entity fight back. It was still with me, latched on to some invisible part of my being. The first few incidents were minor, and I hardly worried about them. The color of a neighbor's car changed from dark blue to black one morning, and I stared at it before, shaking my head and shrugging off the difference. 2 days later, at work, a co-worker's name changed from Fred to Dan. I carefully asked around, but everyone said his name had always been Dan. I figured I just must have been mistaken. Then, as ridiculous as this sounds, I was peeing in my bathroom at home when I suddenly found myself on a random street. I was still in my pajamas, pants down and urinating,
but now in full view of a dozen people at a bus stop. Horrified, I pulled up my clothes and ran before someone called the cops. I did manage to get home, but the experience forced me to admit that I was still in danger. The entity was doing something to me, and I didn't understand how to fight back. Ma showed up that evening, but she had her own key. "Hey," I asked her with confusion. How do you get a key?" She just laughed. "You're cute. Are you sure you're okay with this?" She opened a door and entered the room full of boxes. "I know living together is a big step, especially when we've only been dating 3 months. Living together? I'd literally just met her the week before. Thing was, my mom had called me a smart cookie for a reason. I knew when to shut my yap. Instead of causing a scene, I told her everything was fine, and then I went straight to my room and began investigating. My things were just as I had left them, with no sign of a 3-month gap in habitation. But I did find something out of the ordinary. The date. I shivered angrily as I processed the truth. The entity had eaten 3 months of my life. What the hell was I facing? What kind of creature could consume pieces of one's soul like that? I'd missed the most exciting part of a new relationship, and I would never understand any shared stories or in-jokes from that period. Something absurdly precious had been taken from me, and I was furious. That fury helped suppress the entity. I never imbibed alcohol. I drank coffee religiously. I checked the date every time I woke up. For 3 years, I managed to live each day while observing nothing more than minor alterations. A social fact here and there, someone's job, how many kids they had, that sort of thing. The layout of nearby streets, the time my favorite television show aired, that kind of thing. Always, those changes reminded me the creature still had its claws sunk into my spirit. Not once in 3 years did I ever let myself zone out. One day, I grew careless. I let myself get really into the season finale of my favorite show. It was gripping. A fantastic story. Right at the height of the action, a young boy came up to my lounger, shook my arm. Surprised, I asked, Who are you? How did you get in here?" He laughed and smiled brightly. "Silly daddy." My heart sank in my chest. I knew immediately what had happened. After a few masked questions, I discovered that he was 2 years old, and that he was my son. The agony and the heartache filling my chest was nearly unbearable. Not only had I missed the birth of my son, I would never see or know the first years of his life. Mar and I had obviously gotten married and started a family in the time I'd lost, and I had no idea what joys or pains those years contained. It was snowing outside. Holding my sudden son in my lap, I sat and watched the flakes fall outside. What kind of life was this going to be if slips in concentration could cost me years? I had to get help. The church had no idea what to do. The priest didn't believe me and told me I had a health issue rather than some sort of possession. The doctors didn't have any clue. Nothing showed up on all their scans and tests, but they happily took my money in return for nothing. By the time I ran out of options, I decided to tell Mar. There was no way to know what this all looked like from her side. What was I like when I wasn't there? Did I still take our son to school? Did I still do my job? Clearly I did, because she seemed to be none the wiser. But I still had a horrible feeling that something must have been missing in her life when I wasn't actually home inside my own head. But the night I set up a nice dinner in preparation, she arrived not by unlocking the door, but by knocking on it. I answered, and found that she was in a nice dress. She was happily surprised by the settings on the table. A fancy dinner for our second date? I knew you were sweet on me. Thank the Lord, I knew when to keep my mouth shut. If I'd gone on about being married and having a son, she might have run for the hills. Instead, I took her coat and sat down for our second date. Through carefully crafted questions, I managed to deduce the truth. This really was our second date. She saw relief and happiness in me, but interpreted that as dating jitters. I was just excited to realize that the entity wasn't necessarily eating whole portions of my life. The symptoms, as I was beginning to understand them, were more like the consequences of a shattered soul. The creature had wounded me, broken me into pieces. Perhaps I was to live my life out of order, but at least I would actually get to live it. And so it went for a few years. From my perspective, while minor changes in politics or geography would happen daily, major shifts in my mental location only happened every couple months. When I found myself in a new place and time in my life, I just shut up and listened, making sure to get the lay of the land before doing anything to avoid making mistakes. On the furthest flung leap yet, I met my 6-year-old grandson, and I asked him what he wanted to be when he grew up. He said, "Writer." I told him that was a fine idea. Then I was back in month 2 of my relationship with Ma, and I had the best night with her on the riverfront. When I say the best, I mean the best. Knowing how special she would become to me, I asked her to move in. I got to live through what I'd missed the first go-around, and I came to understand that I was never mentally absent. I would always be there. Eventually. When we were moving her boxes in, she stopped for a moment and said she marveled at my great love, as if I'd known her for a lifetime and never once doubted she was the one. That was the first time I'd truly laughed freely and wholeheartedly since the entity had wounded me. She was right about my love for her, but for exactly the reason she'd considered a silly, romantic analogy. I had known her my whole life, and I'd come to terms with my situation and found peace with it. It wasn't
so bad to have sneak peeks at all the best parts ahead. But of course, I wouldn't be writing this if it hadn't gotten worse. The entity was still with me. It had not wounded me and departed like I'd wanted to believe. The closest I can describe my growing understanding was that the creature was burrowing deeper into my psyche, fracturing it into smaller pieces. Instead of months between major shifts, I began having only weeks. Once I noticed that trend, I feared my ultimate fate would be to jump between times in my life, heartbeat by heartbeat, forever confused, forever lost. Only an instant in each time, and I would never be able to speak with anyone else, never be able to hold a conversation, never express or receive love. As the true depth of that fear came upon me, I sat in an older version of me and watched the snow fall outside. That was the one constant in my life. The weather didn't care who I was, or what pains I had to face. Nature was always there. The falling snow was always like a little hook that kept me in a place. The pure emotional peace it brought was like a panacea of my mental wounds. I'd never yet shifted while watching the pattern of falling white and thinking of the times I'd gone sledding or built a snow fort as a child. A teenager touched my arm. "Grandpa?" "Eh?" He'd startled me out of my thoughts, so I was less careful than usual. "Who are you?" He half grinned, as if not sure whether I was joking. Handing me a stack of papers, he said, "It's my first attempt at a novel. Would you read it and tell me what you think?" Of course." "Pursuing that dream of being a writer, I see." He burned bright red. Trying to, anyway. "All right, run off. I'll read this right now." The words were blurry, and, annoyed, I looked for glasses I probably had for reading. Being old was terrible, and I wanted to leap back into a younger year. But not before I read this book. I found my glasses in a sweater pocket, began leafing through. Mar puttered in and out of the living room, still beautiful, but I had to focus. I didn't know how much time I would have there. It seemed that we had relatives over. Was it Christmas? A pair of adults and a couple kids I didn't recognize tromped through the hallway, and I saw my son, now adult, walk by with his wife on the way out the door. As a group, the extended family began sledding outside. Finally, I finished reading the story. I called out for my grandson. He rushed down the stairs and into the living room. "How was it?" "Well, it's terrible," I told him truthfully. "But it's terrible for all the right reasons. You're still a young man, so your characters behave like young people. But the structure of the story itself is very solid." I paused. "I didn't expect it to turn out to be a horror story." He nodded. "It's a reflection of the times. Expectations for the future are dismal, not hopeful like they used to be."
You're far too young to be aware like that,
I told him.
an idea occurred to me. If you're into horror, do you know anything about strange creatures? Sure. I read everything I can. I love it. Warily, I scanned the entrances to the living room. Everyone was busy outside. For the first time, I opened up to someone in my life about what I was experiencing. In hushed tones, I told him about my fragmented consciousness. For a teenager, he took it well. You're serious? Yes. He donned the determined look of a grown man accepting a quest. I'll look into it, see what I can find out. You should start writing down everything you experience. Build some data. Maybe we can map your psychic wound? Wow. Sounds like a plan. I was surprised. That made sense. Then I hadn't expected him to have a serious response. But how will I get all the notes in one place? Let's come up with somewhere for you to leave them, he said, frowning with thought. Then I'll get them and we can trace the path you're taking through your own life. See if there's a pattern. For the first time since the situation had gotten worse, I felt hope again. How about under the stairs? Nobody ever goes under there. Sure. He turned and left the living room. I peered after him. I heard him banging around near the stairs. Finally, he returned with a box, laid it on the carpet, and opened it to reveal a bursting stack of papers. He exclaimed, "Holy crap!" But of course, being a teenager, he didn't really say crap. Taken aback, I blinked rapidly, forgiving his cussing because of the shock. Did I write those? He looked up at me with wonder. Yeah, or you will. You still have to write them and put them under the stairs after this. He gazed back down at the papers, then covered the box. So, you probably shouldn't see what they say. That could get weird. That much I understood. Right. He gulped. There are like 50 boxes under there, all filled up like this. Deciphering these will take a very long time. His tone dropped deadly serious. But I will save you, Grandpa. Because I don't think anyone else can. Tears flowed down my cheeks then. I couldn't help but sob once or twice. I hadn't realized how lonely I'd become in my shifting prison of awareness until I finally had someone who understood. Thank you. Thank you so much. And then, I was young again, and at work on a random Tuesday. Once the sadness and relief faded, anger and determination replaced them. After I finished my work, I grabbed some paper and began writing. While the weeks shifted around me, while those weeks became days and then hours, I wrote every single spare moment about when and where I thought I was. I put them under the stairs out of order. My first box was actually the 13th. My last box was the 1st.
Once I had over 50 boxes written from my perspective, and once my shifting became a matter of minutes, I knew it was up to my grandson to take it from there. I put my head down and stopped looking. I couldn't stand the river of changing awareness any longer. Names, and places, and dates, and jobs, and colors, and people were all wrong and different. I'd never been older. I sat watching the snow fall. A man of at least 30 that I vaguely recognized entered the room. Come on. I think I finally figured it out. I was so frail that moving was painful. Are you him? Are you my grandson? Yes. He took me to a room filled with strange equipment and sat me in a rubber chair facing a large mirror, twice the height of a man. The pattern finally revealed itself. How long have you worked on this? I asked him, aghast. Tell me you didn't miss your life like I'm missing mine. His expression was both stone cold and furiously resolute. It'll be worth it. He brought 2 thin metal rods close to my arm, and then nodded at the mirror. Look, this shock is carefully calibrated. The electric zap from his device was startling, but not painful. In the mirror, I saw a rapid arcing light silhouette appear above my head and shoulder. The electricity moved through the creature like a wave, briefly revealing the terrible nature of what was happening to me. A bulging, leech-like mouth was wrapped around the back of my head, coming down to my eyebrows, touching my ears, and its slug-like body ran over my shoulder and into my very soul. It was a parasite, and it was feeding on my mind. My now adult grandson held my hand as I took in the horror. After a moment, he asked, "Removing it is going to hurt very badly. Are you up for this?" Fearful, I asked, "Is Ma here?" His face softened. No, not for a few years now. I could tell from his reaction what had happened, but I didn't want it to be true. Oh. We have this conversation a lot, he responded. Are you sure you want to know? It never makes you feel better. Tears brimmed in my eyes. And I don't care if it hurts, or if I die. I don't want to stay in a time where she's not alive. He made a sympathetic noise of understanding and then returned to his machines to hook several wires, diodes, and other bits of technology to my limbs and forehead. While he did so, he talked. I've worked for 2 decades to figure this out, and I've had a ton of help from other researchers of the occult. This parasite doesn't technically exist in our plane. It's one of the lesser spawns of... Well, here. I'm not sure how to pronounce it. And it feeds on the plexus of mind, soul, and quantum consciousness, aka reality. When details like names and colors of objects changed, you weren't going crazy. The web of your existence was merely losing strands as the creature ate its way through you. I didn't fully understand. I looked up in confusion as he placed a circlet of electronics like a crown on my head, in exact line with where the parasite's mouth had ringed me. What's some urban myth? He paused his work and grew pale. I forgot that you wouldn't know. You're lucky, believe me. After a deep breath, he began moving again and placed his fingers near a few switches. Ready? This is carefully tuned to make your nervous system extremely unappetizing to the parasite. But it's basically electroshock therapy. I could still see Mars smile, even though she was dead. I'd just been with her moments ago. Do it. The click of a switch echoed in my ears, and I almost laughed at how mild the electricity was. It didn't feel like anything, at least at first. Then I saw the mirror shaking, and my body within that image convulsing. Oh, no. It did hurt. Nothing had ever been more painful. It was just so excruciating that my mind hadn't been able to immediately process it. As my vision shook and fire burned in every nerve in my body, I could see the reflected, trembling light silhouette of the parasite on my head as it writhed in agony equal to mine. It had claws, 6 clawed lizard-like limbs under its leech-like body, and it cut into me in an attempt to stay latched on. The electricity made my memories flare. Mars' smile was foremost, lit brightly in front of a warm fire as the snow fell past the window behind her. The edges of that memory began lighting up, and I realized that my life was one continuous stretch of experience. It was only the awareness of it that had been fragmented by that feasting evil on my back. I'd never managed to be there for the birth of my son. I jumped around it a dozen times, but never actually lived it. For the first time, I got to hold Mars' hand and be there for her. No. That moment had shifted seamlessly into holding her hand as she lay in a hospital bed for a very different reason. Not this. God, why? It was so merciless to make me remember this. I broke down in tears as nurses rushed into the room. I didn't want to know. I didn't want to experience it. I'd seen all the good parts, but I hadn't wanted the worst. The inevitable end that all would one day face. It wasn't worth it. It was tainted. All that joy was given back 10,000-fold as pain. The fire in my body and in my brain surged,
to sheer white torture, and I screamed. My scream faded into a surprised shout as the machines and electricity and chair faded away. Snow was no longer falling around my life. I was out in the woods on a bright summer day. Oh God. I turned to see the creature approaching me. It was the same absence of meaning, the same blank unreality. It crept forward just like before. But this time, it hissed and turned away. I stood, astounded at being young again and freed from the parasite. My grandson had actually done it. He'd made me an unappetizing meal, so the predator of my mind and soul had moved on in search of a different snack. I returned home in a daze. And while I was sitting there processing all that had happened, the phone rang. I looked at it in awe and sadness. I knew who it was. It was Marjorie. Calling for the first time for some trivial reason she'd admit 30 years later was made up just to talk to me. But all I could see was her lying in that hospital bed dying. It was going to end in unspeakable pain and loneliness. I would become an old man, left to sit by myself in an empty house. His soulmate gone long before him. At the end of it all, the only thing I would have left, sitting and watching the falling snow. But now, thanks to my grandson, I would also have my memories. It would be a wild ride, no matter how it ended. On a sudden impulse, I picked up the phone. With a smile, I asked, "Hey, who's this?" Even though I already knew. I had a feeling. Author's note. Together, my grandfather and I did set out to write the tale of his life. Unfortunately, his Alzheimer's disease progressed rapidly, and we were never able to finish. He's still alive, but I imagine that, mentally, he is in a better place than the nursing home. I like to think he's back to his younger days, living life and being happy, because the reality is much colder. It's snowing today. He loves the snow. When I visited him, he didn't recognize me, but he did smile as he sat looking out the window. Matt Demersky. What a one to end the night on. Goodness. Well, guys, shoot. Not the Mursky, you son of a bitch. Dude. That one, I mean, I don't, like, I feel as though I've started to read enough stories to the point where, I don't know, and I do enjoy most of them. I can find, like, I can find meaning or something to take away from any of the stories that we read. But there's a few that leave me more impacted than the others. I think it's just due to the gravity of this. And you know what line really killed me, dude? Hang on. Let me find it. Give me a moment. Yeah, this right here. But all I could see was her lying in that hospital bed dying. It was going to end in unspeakable pain and loneliness. I would become an old man, left to sit by myself in an empty house, his soulmate gone long before him. At the end of it all, the only thing I would have left, sitting and watching the snow fall. The thing that gets me about that line is that my grandfather, my Mima, my grandmother died long before, and I mean, sorry, my grandma died like a fair amount of years back, and my grandpa has been living this scenario. I don't know. It brought that up in my mind, and yeah, I don't know. It's a cold reality, as it said in the story. And legitimately, like every time my father or any of us like go and visit him, the main thing that he talks about is that he just says, I'm ready. He just continually says, like, I'm just sitting here waiting. Like, I'm ready. And you know, he's a devout Christian too, so he says, you know, I'm just waiting for Jesus to finally take me. And I laugh, but it's only because I'm nervous. Yeah, dude, I don't know, and it's morbid, man. It's morbid. But it's true that like whenever Lucille died, he didn't he hasn't really been the same. And it's weird thinking back of, you know, thinking back when I was younger when they were both alive and you know, in their more like 70s. Yeah, and to still see like the life in them and the love that they shared all the way up until she passed. Yeah, dude, sorry, it's some heavy stuff. Yeah, man. Papa's a real cool guy. He's a war veteran. He was a hard worker throughout his whole life. He's a straightforward kind of dude, but
he works hard for the ones he cares about. I don't know. Good spirit. Yeah, and reading through all this, did anybody else kind of catch on to the idea that this was a bit of an allegory for Alzheimer's? I'm grateful that I haven't really had to, deal with Alzheimer's, and I pray that not deal with, but I'm grateful I haven't really experienced Alzheimer's in my life, and I pray that I never will have that, happen to any of my beloved family. And thinking about that just isn't even helpful. Pray that don't happen. Because like one thing that gets me real sad, and I won't leave off on this note, but it's thinking about like not only myself growing old, but my parents growing old. It's just a weird thought to me, Well, just mortality in general. Hard subject to approach. I did when he mentioned his grandson's reaction to him not recognizing him. My grandmother's not quite far gone yet, but unfortunately, she seems to be heading down that path. Well, I pray that, it does have a bit of a positive spin at the end of it here, where, in that writer's note, Matt says, like, hey, I just pray he's in his younger days, living life and being happy. I like to think that maybe amongst the confusion and the heartache and pain that does come with that, there is also some joy, Yeah, it's oddly reconciling. And what a story to leave off the night. Phew. Snap. Okay, guys. I'm gonna go finish up my tea and hopefully hit the hay before 3 a.m. Wish me luck. I've been very unsuccessful the past few nights, but I finished the song, and having a song like in the works that I'm passionate about, or that I really want to get done and finalized. That's what gets me. Normally, what gets me staying up so late. So, yeah, I'm gonna go, dude. This freaking story got me. This one got me good. Okay, DJ, hit me up with that outro music. Guys, I love you so much, and again, like as I talked about at the beginning, thanks for bearing with me during this phase where I kind of lose motivation and I start wallowing in self-pity and junk. Doing things that are unhelpful for me, and, self-sabotaging and junk like that. I appreciate you bearing with me, and I think I had a real fun night tonight with you guys. So, thanks for being here, and remember to take the merriment we mustered tonight and let it set you at ease as you go to bed tonight. Let it flourish into the morrow. Till next time, wildflowers, stay merry.